All right, so thank you everyone for joining us for another Sunday at the Center of Love. My name is Lesia, and I am delighted to be a member of this amazing, beautiful, inspirational community. We come together every 2 weeks, but even in between, to live our mission, which is to support each other on our quest to cultivate wisdom, healing, and love. Our main 3 agreements are: when we know ourselves, we become wise. When we heal ourselves, we heal the world. When we love ourselves, we love the world. So before we begin today, I would like to invite one of our members up, Cressa. And Cressa is going to come up today and light a candle in remembrance of her son, Jason, who passed away this past week. So we'll just take a moment as Cressa lights a candle. There's a beautiful photo of Jason here up front, and a beautiful crystal, and this candle is going to be on throughout our ceremony or our event today. And this is just another one of the ways that we support each other as this beautiful, loving community, centered, grounded, and founded in love. So today we have a guest talk by someone I feel I know pretty well. But before I introduce him, I would like to sort of talk about a little bit about what came up for me in this last week, after we have spent just over a month here living in what feels like the center of love as we transition from one place to the next, to our new home. And so a few days ago, I ended up listening to The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz and realized that I actually hadn't read this entire book. I read the 5th agreement at one point, but hadn't read the 4 agreements. And as I was listening to the 4 agreements, be impeccable with your word, which is the very first one, really sort of spoke to me as a great segue and introduction to what Glenn is going to be talking about today. So be impeccable with your word. Your word is the power you have to create. Your word is a gift that comes directly from God. Don Miguel Ruiz writes further, through the word, you express your creative power. It is through the word that you manifest everything, regardless of what language you speak. Your intent manifests through the word. What you dream, what you feel, what you really are will all be manifested through the word. And the word that we need to focus on here is impeccable. What does it mean? If you look it up in the Oxford English Dictionary, impeccable means behavior, performance, or appearance in accordance with the highest standards of propriety. If you look towards the theological meaning, it means not liable to sin or without sin. And sin is anything you do that goes against who and what you truly are. So he also goes on to talk about in the book that the word can kind of be a double-edged sword. It can create the most beautiful dream or destroy everything around you. One edge is misuse, and this is what creates a living hell. This is what creates dis-ease, discontent, when we don't know how to get out of the funk or how we sort of have been stuck for a while. The other is impeccability. And this is what will create only beauty, only love, and heaven on earth. So today, Glenn is going to be talking about the word and what it means and who and what we truly are and how we use the word that we truly are. But before he begins, a little bit about Glenn. So Glenn was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and moved to Toronto in 1980. In his late teens, he was introduced to metaphysical writers such as Jane Roberts, which is the Seth material, and Ram Dass. He began attending Unity Church in Toronto in the early 2000s. And then in 2016, as a family, we entered the Center for Spiritual Living. And then when we moved here to Victoria 6 years ago, we continued with the center there. Now, in 2019, Glenn joined the Unity Spiritual Community of Victoria, and he showed up in service to this supportive community in whichever ways that aligned with his talents. By May of 2021, he became a board member of the newly created merged Unity Vancouver Island and is now the vice president. Glenn is father to 3 amazing children, staff member to the lovely cat Mercury, and husband to a wonderfully creative and supportive woman, I wonder what that could be. He is learning to surrender to every experience that comes his way, however, feels most aligned while listening to music, podcasts, and audiobooks, playing with language, which is you're going to see today, and along with his wife, co-creating their consciousness themed podcast, Who Do You Think You Are? So I would love to welcome my husband, also known to me as the Lommel, love of my life, Mr. Glenn Sheridan, with his talk today.
This book. So thank you everyone for being here. And my name is Glenn, as we've heard, and I am presently the Vice President of Unity Vancouver Island, which is essentially my core current spiritual community overall. I'm being enveloped into another one with so much love, it's hard to resist, you know. So thank you. I would like to thank all of you for this invitation to speak to this lovely community of lovely and inspiring people. And I do intend to honor the time that you have given and agreed to share with me. My aim today is to explore the power and possibilities of two, or inherent in two tiny but mighty words, I am. And also to explain why there can only be one kind of illness and how even this illness is mere illusion. And as you heard, Reverend Al Green will be by later on to help us forget everything and just L-O-V-E, love. Love that man. I want to build on the amazing insights contained within Cress's talk on self-love and Ollie's talk on knowing thyself from last month, those last two talks. And not to mention the valuable and vulnerable sharing by the community members on what was brought up by these talks. If you remember, Cressa read the powerful poem by Araya Mountain Dreamer. Here's an excerpt I loved. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or to fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, and if you can dance with the wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes, without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, or to remember the limitations of being. That really spoke to me. Ollie's talk on knowing thyself was inspirational to me. He did mention the origin partly of Pythagoras coming up with this term, know thyself. Know thyself, then you shall know the universe and God, which again, back to my talk, this is what the I am is. So now I'm stuck on the thing here. So I would like to go a little deeper into this question of who is this self, this I, that is experiencing the knowing and the potential obstacles or challenges to loving the being that is aware and conscious in each moment. It gets very trippy talking about this stuff because we have to use language where we're using pronouns and making sense of things, yet we're going as deep as we possibly can into where are we here? What is this consciousness and awareness thing? So please bear with me. Thank you. So, and to test the comfort zones of each of you, after all, why should I be the only one in the group feeling discomfort? By speaking, I think some of us can relate. It's not my favorite thing, public speaking, but here we are. I would like to also know who is this they that I keep hearing about. We hear that word a lot these days, they. I do not promise to have definitive answers on these questions, but I do want to have some fun in pointing out some perspectives that you may resonate with or even find entertaining. So my talk title is The I Am, the Great Preset. you've perhaps heard of this term, the Great Reset, over the last few years. This is a program, I'm taking this from the website, so I'll try and keep deadpan on this. A program of social and economic change on a global level from the WEF, the World Economic Forum. It came to prominence in 2020 during the COVID response that has as its part of its vision the following catchy mantra: by the year 2030, 10 years, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And they also imply that you're going to be eating bugs a lot more. But here we go. So by the year 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So how can this conditional equation help the average person act for the greater good and be on the right side of disease control and somehow relatedly climate change history? To me, it sort of echoes what happened in the early church, the Christian church, in times past. And they would find a way to extract land from people of means and other resources from people of means who are searching for a way to repent of their sins. You want to get to heaven, but you're feeling unsure about your sinful thoughts and acts? Well, you can't take all this stuff with you. So when you die, you just give it to the Holy Church, and we'll put in a good word for the guy upstairs regarding your salvation. So to me, the message, you will own nothing, which comes first in the threat or the promise, and then you'll be happy, is coming from such a place of lack and fear that I have a sense that most human beings will recoil from this message. I know there are some who just are looking for direction and will follow. That's fine. I do get a sense overall that more than half of the people on the planet are like, no. And it's important to me, it's more importantly an inversion of truth. And the truth is this: first, I am. The beginning point of all consciousness is this I am awareness. I choose to believe that all that is, we get into this long list that people use to describe what do you think the infinite is? God, creation, consciousness, spirit, the cosmic actor. I think this cosmic actor is very fond of playing dress up, adopting a persona, wearing a mask, and playing each and every role to the maximum level of reality that it possibly can. So I am comes from this limitlessness, of infinite possibilities. It means, from back to my unity language here, from a perspective, unity perspective, divine source creating worlds through the use of each of us, selecting realities that align with our feelings and beliefs. And the metaphysical meaning typically is understood as I am is God's name in man. It's the indwelling Christ. It was the Christ in Jesus who exclaimed, before Abraham was, I am. As in, it's the thing that underlies all human experience. It's what we come from. It's who we are. And I just think what a trick this is, back to the lack and limitation model that we talked about earlier with the WEF. Contrary to what I just said, to be hypnotized by a belief that there is only so much of a thing to go around, and the protocols must be followed in order to avoid this or that disaster, and that we are separate beings from one another, and that divisions must be upheld in order to do right and to be good. And we've seen and felt a lot of that being herded into, well, we have to, because there's going to be so many problems otherwise. To me, it severs the individual expression or aspect of all that is from its source. And we are encouraged to use this negative self-talk, this self-hatred of our core being, to say things like, I'm so stupid, or I'm useless at this such and such a thing. And when we do this, and this is what some of what Cressa was mentioning in her talk, we're self-hexing. We do this, we deny our power at its source, and it limits our growth and our opportunities to serve the highest good. Because I think we're convinced that we can only do so much to help, and we can only do it in certain ways, and we have to follow these rules. And those things, the more you dwell on them, they take you further and further away from your intuition, for example, which is like your best guide in life, in my opinion. So, iPad's playing with me here. These are thinking patterns that we've been taught to see as normal and to use on ourselves and others. And if we look down on ourselves, we may find it easier to look down on others with similar feelings. To turn on the blame thrower and just spray, you know. It's just natural when you're feeling triggered or tripped, or, you know, you're replaying a trauma or whatever it is. But there are reminders. Here's the uplifting part. There are reminders that we are only as limited as our beliefs and the feelings that we generate. The cosmic actor playing all of these parts has peppered our experience with so many clues to our true identity. For example, the I am, called Joseph Campbell, reminds us to follow your bliss. These are the three greatest words I've ever heard, almost. To me, this means to have what happens in life follow from my bliss, from my bliss feeling, my infinite potential knowing. And to use this formula, I can say things like, I am happy, blissfully happy. I am happy and I owe nothing. I owe nothing. It's not about ownership. It's, I'm not interested in your debt perspective, whatever. And this is because of what I am is and what it implies. And I'll just note for a second, the WEF, those letters, it's a possibility. It's a WEF. It's not the WEF. It's a limited one. And if you look at the letters, it's backwards. It's few, which is scarcity again, right? Scarcity mindset. So the I am, called Neville Goddard, one of my favorite authors and speakers, reminds me that God is my own wonderful human imagination. That knowing what is and understanding that when we're visioning and things like that, feeling is the secret. It allows me to create my beautiful life by knowing and trusting. The I am, known as Seth, channeled entity, reminds me that our existence isn't a random event devoid of meaning, but rather one centered around value fulfillment, play, and love. And that how things work is I get what I concentrate on. Everything else will fall into the background of possibilities and probabilities. You may know this one. The I am, known as Jeffrey the Dude Lebowski, yes, reminds me, in answer to the WEF and Mr. Schwab, yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man. The I am, known as Ho'oponopono, that the Hawaiian prayer, is I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I can't tell you how many times I've used that. To bless others, to forgive them, forgive myself when I'm overwhelmed. It just works. The I am that calls itself Abraham Hicks, says you can never get it wrong and you'll never get it done, which is just live your life. Don't worry. Focus on well-being, or at least the next level of where you're feeling. If you're overwhelmed, figure out where a little better you can be and things will lighten up. The I am known as the earth reminds me to take off my shoes and ground in my being. Just be, because we do come from the earth. We didn't come into this world, we came out of this world, right? And this is one of my favorites. The I am known as Ramdas centers me in the core truth that I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. And you can go play with that and say, I'm just loving awareness. You know, it's very rich. And as I mentioned to Ollie last week, this week, I am that calls itself Alan Watts, the philosopher from the 60s and 70s, reminds us that life is not an automatic and random mechanism, nor is it controlled by a tyrant king god. Rather, it is a process, a great dance, a drama, in which each dancer knows their steps and heeds the rhythm of their intuition. And each player knows their lines and hits their marks. He also suggests that the only way to have control in life, here's the paradox, is to give up control. Simply trust each player, each dancer, each aspect of God that appears to be outside of you, and trust and know that all is well, that you are safe because you are not really separate from the divine. And this is back to the they thing. It's uncomfortable, but it's not real. When Alan Watts talks about this concept of the space between objects, between people, that's not really, that's part of everything. It's not emptiness. It's just part of one big thing, which I love hearing about. And so back to the drama that the cosmic actor is playing in. What would we call this drama, this great drama that all that is playing in? I'd like to give it a name worthy of a Hitchcock thriller. Let's call it I amnesia. This I amnesia is the disease I mentioned earlier, the only disease there is. Because if you forget that core thing, all that other stuff is potentially there to trip you up, make you feel dis-ease, etc. So imagine a person in a room alone, waking up and not knowing who they are. It's usually from a knock on the head, this amnesia thing, right? Who am I? What's my name? Where am I? Why am I here? How do I wish to feel? Sometimes I'm getting hungry. When's lunch? Right? The person is sitting at a computer screen reading a page that outlines all of the terms of use for being in this body that they've already signed off on. This is each person entering a life. They have already picked their parents, their family, friends, lovers, and enemies. Their obstacles, trauma events, and areas of growth. Maybe even their preference for how they wish to lead this life. They're all set. They've clicked I accept on the mouse. And the screen comes up that reminds them they have not chosen yes or no to one question. Do you wish to continue to suffer from I amnesia? Because that's what we're doing each moment of each day, with each breath, each heartbeat. We cannot hold our attention on joy and pain simultaneously. We must settle on one only. Nor can we play the role of oppressed victim, helpless to anything to help others or to our own self, and be the I am, our God self, at the same moment. We do have to choose. And it gets uncomfortable to say, I'm the one in control here. This can be very rough, but just remember, please, that worry is also a prayer. So focusing on lack is a prayer for more lack. That's how Source interprets what is observed. We keep looking at something, we keep getting more of that thing, good or bad. source doesn't really understand. It's like, oh, you want more of that? Okay, here's some more. Here's some more, Mr. Schwab. Here's some more lineups at the grocery store. Keep focusing on that. Question then arises, what are you buying with all the attention you're paying? What are you focusing on? So back to my unity thing for a second. The core 5 principles of unity, there's nothing official, but they came up with this few decades ago. You can reduce them to 5 things, 10 words. It's God is the first principle. I am is the second. I pray, meditate, so forth. I create, I act. Now, allow me to use the style preferred by William Shakespeare, iambic pentameter, that has I am in it, if you notice, which mimics the rhythm of a heart beating to bring that into God is, I am, I pray, allow, and act. I am is a knowing that all is well because I am. So when we close our eyes, not now if you wish, but holding a feeling in our hearts of overwhelming goodness. The kids right now upstairs, they're so much enjoying this kitten in their lives. This is like pure love that's just entered their lives again. It's amazing. Holding a baby, being out in the ocean, whatever that feeling is, if we can pull that in and anchor ourselves from that, that is helping us to remember the I am. So I'll end with this. The great preset is what I call this, I am. This is before anything else. The awareness of one's own divinity and power through our words, our feelings, and our choosing to be loving rather than reactive. I encourage each of us to use this power with care and attention. And just briefly, the Sanskrit word Sat Chit Ananda, Sat, that which is Chit, that which is consciousness, Ananda is bliss. This is bliss. It's in here, it's in each of us, and we are that one thing. Life is a process happening. It is pattern, it's not stuff. Life is a dance of energy. Please enjoy this dance. Thank you.
So this is the end of our event today. I would like to say thank you very much. Do you want to do it before we? There's still the music.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So before we move on to our second song today, I would just like to thank Ollie and Candace for opening up their home again. And it's so lovely seeing them arm in arm, all lovey-dovey right now. No one's doing anything official today. Thank you, Glenn Sheridan, for the amazing, insightful talk that sparked a lot of conversations. And thank you, Dre, for being Mr. Technician today and doing all the audio visual stuff. Thank you to everyone who is here in person. The newest member of the Center of Love was here. I think everybody got a chance to see little tiny furry Cornito, but he's back upstairs now. And thank you to everyone online for joining us and everyone who is listening to the recording afterwards. Thank you very much for your donations, your financial contributions. There's an opportunity at the back. There are little strips of paper that have the email on there that you can send an e-transfer to. We are so grateful for your time, your presence, your treasure, everything that you bring to the Center of Love. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That's another Sunday. We're going to listen to one last tune by the Reverend Al Green, Love.